XIV.
Hello, I'm No Quarters Elkie Dory, and I'd like to welcome you to Regal Bout. This series is going to be dedicated to learning to play and compete in King of Fighters 14, both online and offline. To turn the clock back, 1 year ago, I was in the middle of a trip to Japan, and I think I had just woke up that morning or afternoon, whatever, and my newsfeed was absolutely blowing up with KOF 14's announcement teaser that had just debuted at the Tokyo Game Show. And I was floored that KOF was returning because it looked like SNK had given up on console gaming entirely. But here it was a brand new KOF, and I was ecstatic because not only would I get another chance to get in on the ground floor of a new KOF game, but I would have a backup just in case when Street Fighter V launched in 2016, I would have something to fall back on if I wasn't really digging on 5 that much. So you flash forward 1 year to right now, and that's exactly what happened. So now I'm faced with one of the nagging shortfalls of my fighting game career. I never learned to play a KOF game properly. Now, I've played KOF games before. I played all of them that were on the MVS cabs until they disappeared out where I live. Back then, in this area, SNK games were played pretty much strictly on a casual basis. There wasn't a scene that I knew of for playing Fatal Fury or KOF or even Samurai Showdown. There was barely a Street Fighter community here. It was very small because Mortal Kombat just dwarfed everything in my little region here. That was the game that was getting people lining up, surrounding the cab, getting tournaments underway, all that, and they were popping up in places that usually only had Golden Tee or something. They'd have an MK machine. So by the time that the arcades were winding down, the last KOF game that I got to play on an actual cabinet was 99. And that was only against the CPU. Like, nobody would come up and play the game against me or with me and motivate me to learn. And any other of the Neo Geo entries that followed up, 2000, 01, 02, and so on, I only got to play those as ports later on like PS2 releases. And that would have just been me, like, in my place, playing by myself, because I really didn't have a lot of friends that played at that time. I didn't really play any of the 3D ones. I never played 11. The next one that I played was 12. And the entire reason that I picked it up was because 13 was coming out, and I was interested in playing 13. And 12 looked like it superficially, and there was a little bit of carryover gameplay-wise, but I remember when I fired that game up, a whole bunch of the characters I wanted to play weren't there, and the sprites looked a little jaggy, and I don't know, it just, I was glad that I'd picked it up used. So, from 94 to 13, I never really dug into King of Fighters enough to understand like how all the mechanics fit together and how at least a mid-level game of KOF was supposed to look and feel as far as incorporating the hops and the rolls and the blowbacks and dealing with vulnerability on your supers. Because when I did pick up 13, I felt pretty overwhelmed by it because you had the HD gauge, that was yet another thing for me to keep track of on top of the standard meter. I remember execution back then. Not that mine's great now, but back then it was far worse. And trial mode just pretty much illustrated my chances of really learning that game, especially when I didn't have someone there kind of guiding me. So now with 14, things are looking a little bit more approachable. I had the opportunity to play it at Summer Jam X that I went to compete in some other games, and I was excited that Big E had said that they were going to have setups there. There was a full game a few days before release and get to try it out. And I got to play it against some seasoned KOF players, and they were very welcoming, and they were willing to teach anyone who stepped up and were wanting to give the game a try, just a little bit of basics, a little stuff to get started. So I looked at the roster and I picked out my characters, and I picked them how I usually do. First, is there anybody in there I already mained? Next, is there somebody in there that I think I want to learn? And beyond that, is there somebody who just looks cool? So in that order, respectively, that's King, Terry, and Angel. If you're looking at the footage in front of you, you can see how that plan worked out. King is absolutely here to stay. She has been my rock in SNK fighters going way back. Just has the particular feel, the character makes sense to me. Terry. I have a serious problem in letting the way that I played Fatal Fury way back when, because I sank a ton of time into Fatal Fury. And I still kind of play Terry in that way. It kind of takes me back to the early 90s and that very kind of stop action way of playing. And I just can't adapt them to this. There's just too much mental baggage. And maybe I'll eventually be able to break through, but right now is not that time. And then I looked at Angel, and oh man, I am nowhere near ready to learn that character in this game yet. That's a goal down the line that I want to be able to at least be capable with her a little bit, but it's like she's a game unto herself. But thankfully, I already had Geese in mind as a backup choice, and after seeing the trailer of him parrying and countering just about everybody in the game, it made him look like a god, and I was just, I want to do that. I want to land that stuff against opponents in matches, because I live for moments in matches rather than wins. And next, I was kind of conflicted over who to drop into the last spot until I watched the KOF 13 Grand Finals at Summer Jam. And it was a match between El Rosa and Ricio. And it reminded me how just wild and entertaining it is to watch good Vice players. So going forward, these three are going to be the ones that I learn the system of KOF with. I may swap in a couple other characters here and there just for some variety, because with a roster this large, it's almost impossible to ignore all these other choices and toys that you get to play with. And I'm still holding out hope for a little DLC down the line, because I desperately want Vanessa to come back. Even in the time that I played 02 by myself, that character just stood out. It was really the only boxing type fighter that I've ever picked up in a game and really dug playing. So hopefully she returns. But for now, you might see that my team order looks a little upside down, a little backwards. King is a perennial battery character in KOF, and you can make the case that Geese and Vice are both kind of anchor type characters, and I have them on the front. In time, I'd like to situate them accordingly, but because I'm so familiar with King, I'm way more likely to stage comeback with her, much better mindset playing her in the clutch, and I'm more comfortable landing things and spending meter to get big damage right where it matters the most. This also lets me put Vice in a position where I'm guaranteed to get the most gameplay with her, because I'm the least familiar with her. I didn't even really touch her in 13 because she just seemed so difficult then, but like I said, everything kind of feels a little more accessible now. Geese, on the other hand, is in a position where he can potentially bang out back-to-back level 2 counter supers, which I'm doing just for my own amusement because I think it's hilarious. The weekend following the game's release, I got a chance to head down to Xanadu Games outside of Baltimore and compete in the monthly, and a whole bunch of faithful KOF players in the area showed up for the first time in ages, and they mopped the floor with me, and it reminded me just how much I have to catch up after playing in ranked and getting my confidence a little artificially high. I thought I had a handle on how to deal with Daimon, and I got proved otherwise by getting OCV'd by one of the old KOF players over there. Even with King, which I was told was supposed to be a good matchup for King, and it didn't work out. So it just shows how much work I have to put in. I also had trouble dealing with somebody's Terry, and I thought I understood Terry. And then when I got home, I started getting beat by Terrys all the time. But now that I've got this downtime at home, it's going to let me watch ECT and watch how the people in the tournament level are playing. I've got a few weeks now before the next local pops up in Baltimore. And then it isn't until about October that there's going to be another Xanadu Monthly. So I've got some time to work with. I'm going to use that time to keep making this show and to try to get some online sets in with the better people that I've played from Summer Jam X and the last Xanadu Monthly and a couple of the guys that I've met online, because playing people better than yourself is the fastest route to improving. These players are more likely to play the uncommon characters, your grapplers, your brand new characters with funky play styles, and that's going to be probably the only way that I'm going to learn to deal with some of these other strategies and learn the game more thoroughly, because my 3 characters only cover so much of the game's mechanics. But coming up on Regal Bout, I'm going to quickly go over the recent netcode patch, my experiences playing in its wake. I will also go over some match analysis, pinpoint the flaws in my play and try to address them, discuss some community news, try out other characters, and review major tournament results. Well, that's going to do it for this introductory episode. Hope you guys will continue to enjoy the game right along with me and the rest of us in the King of Fighters 14 community. And until next time, take care, you guys.
Welcome!